Well, thank you guys so much last week for helping us enable some families to have a great Christmas. So I got a question for you to start off with, and the question is, are you kind of a big celebration person or a smaller celebration person? Like when you have a birthday party, or even now, you've gotten a little bit older, do you still have birthday parties? Yes. Yeah, you're a big celebration person. Birthday parties. I had a friend who used to tell me, hey, my birthday's coming up, get me a card. They'd remind me every day, my birthday's coming up, have you got the card yet? They were a big celebration person. I actually grew up in a small celebration family. My family was not big on celebrations. Your birthday, you were lucky to get one gift, maybe a food that my mom thought I liked, something like that. Holidays, Christmas, we'd do something. And in fact, as we got older, it was more about the joke than it was the real gift. I used to lead sanctuary for about 9 years, and actually I'd give my family the leftover t-shirts that nobody would take from here. That's what I would give them. My brother, he worked for the National Hemophiliac Foundation, which hemophilia is a disease your blood doesn't clot right, and he worked for them. It's a great organization, helps people with that, and he would always give us Band-Aids that said National Hemophiliac Foundation on it. It's kind of ironic if you think about it. That's the way we celebrated. But then I started dating this girl that I'm now married to, and her family was a big celebration family. Big events, big people, birthday parties were dozens of family members would come. Then we got engaged. We started talking about wedding. My brother's wedding was 40 people sitting in a circle. 600 people were invited to my wedding. I kid you not. 600 people. And it was, it's my wife over there cheering. 350 showed up. We started talking about it, and they said, well, it's going to be a 4-day affair. There were 110 people invited to our rehearsal dinner, in case you're wondering. Greek dancing at the rehearsal dinner. I married into a big celebration family. And I've got to be honest with you, I was converted a little bit. I've been converted a little bit into realizing, because I used to be kind of almost kind of negative towards celebrations. I was one of those that's I'm not going to celebrate Valentine's Day today. I celebrate it all year long. I kind of one of those people that I used to be a little bit more like that. Why do we need these big celebrations? And as I've gotten older, I've either gotten wiser or, softer, probably wiser. I got a little softer, but that's, anyway. Because I've realized that it really is good to celebrate. There are things that are worth celebrating. In fact, I've had friends who are we're just going to run off and get married. I'm like, marriage is a big deal. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to invite 600 people, but you really should do something. You should do something pretty big, because this is a big deal. To mark this occasion, you should probably do something. I've converted a little bit that celebrating is really actually part of what God wants us to do. I mean, in the Bible, Jesus actually went to celebrations. There was one point where, it's just before Pentecost, where Jesus and his buddies, they thought they were drunk because they were celebrating. They were not drinking, actually. They were just they were so rowdy that they're like, man, these guys are really having a good time. So I've realized that. So my question that I want to ask us tonight, because we're in a very celebratory season. I don't know if you know that, but Christmas is coming up soon. It's just a couple days away. And so, we're in this celebratory season. So the question I want to ask us tonight is, how should we celebrate Christmas? How should we celebrate it? What kind of stuff we should do? Unfortunately, I can't tell you what to buy your brother for Christmas. I can't suggest that. Maybe some nice old sanctuary hats and t-shirts. Those would work well. But we can look at how one group of people in the Bible celebrated Christmas. The vast majority of people on the very first Christmas didn't really celebrate a ton. Mary and Joseph, you wouldn't necessarily call it celebrating. They were just trying to figure out how to take care of a baby. But there was one group that actually celebrated. They actually celebrated Christmas. And so tonight, I want to look at that one group, see how they celebrated, and see what we can learn from that. Now, that group is talked about in the book of Matthew chapter 2. Matthew chapter 2 talks about this group and what they did to celebrate that first Christmas. Let's read it. It says this: After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, and they asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people, chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was supposed to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet wrote. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be a shepherd for my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star that they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So, the group I want to look at tonight that celebrated this first Christmas was the group that's called Magi. Sometimes they're called wise men. Sometimes they're called kings, like we three kings. That's probably the worst name for them. They weren't necessarily kings. Maybe they were. We actually don't know a lot about them, but we do know some things about them. And one of the things we do know is they're called Magi, which was a Persian word. It also says they came from the east, so we know they came from the east. That's pretty vague still. We don't know exactly where they came from. Maybe modern-day Iraq or Turkey or possibly Eastern Turkey or Iran, somewhere in there. In fact, we know they kind of traveled a ways to get there. If you're trying to picture what these guys might have looked like, you probably should think of Bruce. Bruce, stand up so they can see you there. There's Bruce. Bruce is Turkish. Bruce is Turkish. He's got a beard. They probably wore flannel too, I'm sure. So, all right, thank you. Now sit down. So they were a group. We don't actually know how many. We use the word three because they gave three gifts, but there were probably more than three. They traveled somehow from the east, and the other thing we know about them is it says that they saw a star, and they followed it. Now, sometimes people say, well, they were kind of astrologers, which is people that kind of look for the stars and look for things, and there's some truth to that, but to me, that word and that idea sounds kind of weird or kooky or bizarre or kind of, I don't know, just sort of strange. But we know actually that these people were highly respected. And that's why wise men is actually a pretty good word for it. Or what we would think of today as advisors. There are like presidential advisors that the president is supposed to get advice from. And so you think of advisors, and we know they were respected because when they got to Herod, when they went and saw him, Herod was very interested in what they had to say. In fact, when he said something that kind of concerned them, it says both Herod and all the people that were around him, all his people, were very disturbed. So these were actually well-respected people, well-respected advisors who did pay attention to what was going on in the star. They saw this star, and they started following it. So, how did these people celebrate the first Christmas? What did they do when they saw the star? They realized something had happened. Well, let's go back to the verse and see. Catching up on this verse, in verse 9, it says, "After they'd heard the king, they went on their way, and the star that they had seen rose. When they went ahead of him, it stopped over a place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed." Overjoyed. The first thing they did, it says, the first thing they did when they realized that something big had happened on Christmas is that they were overjoyed. Actually, this is a little later, but they were overjoyed. Now, we're going to have to kind of have a little bit of a Greek lesson here, right? This book of the Bible was written in Greek originally, and this word overjoyed sounds like a pretty good word. I mean, I don't know, if I were to ask you, how often are you overjoyed? You'd probably be like, I don't know, maybe some of you, for me, I don't get too overjoyed very often. I probably should. But, overjoyed, the problem is this word overjoyed is not that great of a translation of the Greek words that are actually written here. In fact, this one word, overjoyed, comes from 4 Greek words. I'll put them up on the screen for you because I know you want to learn Greek. And I'll put the words in Greek, in the Greek alphabet, and then in English alphabet underneath. And stick with me here. There's a reason we're doing this. So there's 4 words that are translated, kind of put together, they're translated overjoyed. They're these words, haro, hara, megas, sforda. All right? Now, you can see what they mean. Haro means to rejoice. Hara means occasion of joy. Megas means mega, or big. Sfodra means exceedingly or extremely. So, in the verse that we were reading, they put all these together and say overjoyed. Now, that's from a translation called the NIV. There are other translations. For instance, the ESV, that we'll put up there for you, it says, when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. They actually tried to put all these words in there, rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And the reason is because they're trying to encapsulate these 4 words that they said. Now, the only problem with that is the word exceedingly with great joy, it's also not really a phrase. Here's why this is important. When these magi or wise men saw this star, they went bananas. They went crazy. And they put these 4 words together to go, they were overjoyed, they were exceedingly joyful, they were so crazy with excitement. So how are we supposed to celebrate? With crazy excitement. That's how we're supposed to celebrate. Crazy excitement. Like imagine like the most crazy sports fanatic you know. Like covers themselves in body paint of the colors of their favorite team. Goes to all the crazy, like jumps around crazy. Like that's the level of excitement that these wise men, these magi had. They saw this star. Now what's interesting is that these wise men and magi, they didn't actually know very much. They had seen a star. And we know from what they said that they believed that because of the star, someone had been born who, what they call is King of the Jews. So this person had been born that they thought was going to be a king. They most likely thought it was going to be some sort of political king. And they were super excited. And so when we think about Christmas, we're supposed to be crazy excited. But here's the thing. You can't really force yourself to be crazy excited. I can't just go to you and be like, hey, Josh, be crazy excited. Now, you might be able to because you're crazy excited all the time. But, you can't just go to someone and say, come on, be excited. You can't yell at someone to be excited. You can't force someone to be excited. There's only one way that you could be excited. If you're genuinely excited. If you actually understand something and understand something that makes you so excited. So, in order to understand why they're excited and why we're excited, we got to understand, well, what made them so excited? And what made them so excited is they knew that this baby was no ordinary baby. They knew this baby was some sort of once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Something that was so big that says, hey, we're going to leave our house. We're going to leave the comfort of our own home. We're going to travel for months, days. Some people think even years. They think by the time the wise men got there, Jesus might have been a toddler. He could have been older than that. So if you have a nativity scene at home, somewhere in your house, take the wise men and put them in a different room. They're not allowed to be in that little nativity scene. They showed up later. He was born, they followed a star, they showed up, and they were so excited. They knew that something extraordinary had happened, that a baby had been born, that it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and you know what? I'm going to get up out of my house. I'm going to walk. Most likely they walked for months to find this baby. That's why they were excited. But you know what's interesting? We know a whole lot more now. We're a couple thousand years later. They thought some baby, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They were going to meet a king who was born. We know today that this wasn't just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That this baby that was born was going to change the trajectory of the entire world. I mean, even if you don't believe in Jesus, even if you follow Jesus, everyone says Jesus was one of the most influential people in the history of the world. He's influenced art, he's influenced music, he's influenced philosophy. We date our calendar based on him. Most hospitals and schools were started by people who were following him. We know now that this little baby that was born is probably the most influential person in the history of the world. And so if the Magi were crazy excited, we should be even crazier excited. And the reason we're even crazier excited is because we know that this little baby that was born wasn't just going to be a political king, but was actually the God of the universe who was put into the form of a human in a little baby. That's crazy. It's like mind-blowing stuff, like poof. Like just blows your mind to think that that's what was happening. God became a human. God became a little baby. I mean, it is mind-blowing. Yeah, it's crazy. It's unbelievable. But if it's true, it's the most important thing you'll ever know. And it is. That's why when we think of Christmas, the only way that we can do it is to celebrate with crazy excitement. And if we don't, if we miss that, we're missing what Christmas really is. Besides being crazy excited, how did these Magi celebrate? We're going on in the verse. This is when they saw the star, they were overjoyed, crazy excited, super duper, amazingly excited. And then on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. They bowed down and worshiped him. Now, when we think of bowing, we think of a gentle hello, good day, sir. A nice little bend at the waist, something like that. That's what we think of as bowing. That's not what they meant by bowing. What they meant by bowing is literally laying down completely prostrated on the ground in front of a little baby. Laying down completely. And the reason they would do that is to show deference, to show that they completely were in submission of the person that they were bowing down to. You would lay down to show that you are just nothing. You're nothing. I'm nothing compared to this person I'm laying down in front of. They're everything. I'm nothing. And so you would bow down completely, down on the ground in front of them. Imagine that scene. You got Mary and baby toddler, we don't know what age. And all of a sudden some guys come in looking like Bruce, and they lay down right in front of you. It had to be a little weird. It had to be a little weird for these people to come in, especially if they look like Bruce, and lay down in front of you. What was Mary thinking? Jesus, he was a little baby. He wasn't thinking much at all. But what was Mary thinking when these people came down and lay down? And why would you lay down in front of a baby? You would lay down because you wanted to passionately and reverently worship. Passionately and reverently. That word reverent is so great. It comes from the word revere. When you revere someone, you're like, wow, you're awesome. You're amazing. That's what it means to revere someone. And these wise men, they came, they laid down completely in front of Jesus because they wanted to say, man, Jesus, compared to you, we're nothing. Which is kind of amazing to think. They were laying down in front of a baby. In front of a little baby, and they were going, compared to you, baby, we're nothing. The wisdom we had is nothing compared to you. Our understanding is nothing compared to you. You are so much greater than we could ever imagine. That's what worship is. That's what reverent worship is. Because sometimes in church we can actually sing, we can even dance, we can jump around, but not really understand that what we're doing is not just singing and dancing, but we're remembering the greatness of who God is. That's what worship is. Worship is taking time to remember how great and amazing and awesome God is and what He's done for us. And you can jump around and sing and not actually worship. But these wise men, when they came, when they laid down, it was because they was acknowledging that this baby that they were going to lay in front of was great. Now, what's interesting again is they really thought, most likely, that this baby was going to be a political leader. And they thought he was going to be some sort of great political leader, and they were amazed by that. But again, we know so much more. We know thousands of years later that Jesus wasn't really a political leader. We know that what made him great was not his politics, but it was actually, again, that he was the almighty, all-loving, all-powerful God. And when you understand that, that's who Jesus was, you can't help but bow down. Because, man, Jesus, you're so much greater than I am. Jesus, you have so much more wisdom than I do. You are God in the flesh. Compared to you, I'm nothing. I want to understand you more. I want to follow you more. I'll do what you say. You're smarter than I am. You're greater than I am. You're better than I am. When we think about Christmas, you can't help but be like, holy cow, that baby is an almighty, all-powerful God. That is worth celebrating. Those wise men, they were crazy excited about this baby. They bowed down and worshiped this baby. And then they did one more thing. If we go on in these verses, it says, when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child, his mother Mary. They bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him their gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Why did the wise men bring gifts? Why do you bring gifts to anyone? Sometimes you bring gifts because you want someone to do something nice for you. If I give you a gift, maybe you'll do something nice for me. This was a baby. Baby couldn't do much for them. They brought gifts because they want to honor. These are gifts that you would normally give someone of royalty. Gold, frankincense, which was like a perfume kind of thing. Myrrh, which was like an oil. They brought these gifts to give them to Jesus to show, hey, you know what? We're not just going to say that we think you're going to be great. We want to invest in you. We want to give you gold. We want to let you know that we believe in you. We want to give of ourselves. We will sacrifice ourselves for you because we know that what you're going to do is greater than what we're going to do. So we'll give you some of our stuff. When I think about this, it makes me wonder a little bit, like, well, what does it mean to give Jesus gifts now? How do we do that? Jesus is in heaven. He doesn't need our stuff. He doesn't need our gold. He doesn't need our perfume. He doesn't need our oil. How do you give Jesus gifts now? Well, the good news is, when Jesus got older, he actually told us how to do that. He told a story. The same book of Matthew, and a bunch of chapters later, in chapter 25, Jesus actually tells a story. He tells a story about a king, and he says this king went to people, and he told some of the group, hey, thank you guys for helping me. When I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I needed clothes, you gave me clothes. Then he says to the other group, he says, you know what? You guys didn't help me. I was hungry, you didn't give me anything. I was thirsty, you didn't give me anything to drink. And the people are like, wait a minute, you're the king. Like, you're a king. You were never hungry. You were never thirsty. How did we actually do that? And this chapter ends with a famous line where it says, Jesus said, whatever you did for one of the least of these, brothers or sisters of mine, you did for me. How do we give gifts to Jesus? Well, it's pretty simple. We give gifts to Jesus by loving and serving each other, especially those who need it most. When we love and serve others, it gives gifts to Jesus. Why? Because one of the things Jesus said is that he wanted life on earth to be more like life in heaven, where everything's much better. In fact, the reason Jesus came down to live here is because the world is messed up. I don't know if you notice that, but the world around us is a little messed up. There's mean people out there. There's people doing not nice things. So Jesus came here because he said, hey, I know people are messing up this beautiful world I created, and I want to help restore that. And in fact, I would love people to follow me, to understand how I created them, to live that way, to make this world more like it would be in heaven. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven is what Jesus taught us to pray. And so what Jesus said is, okay, I may be gone, but what I need you to do in order to give gifts to me is actually treat each other the way they're supposed to be treated. Love, serve, and give to pretty much everyone, but especially those who need it most. And this is something that doesn't necessarily take money. To serve and love my family, even though they may be annoying at Christmas time, it doesn't take money. But it's a great gift that we can give Jesus. To love and serve my coworkers or the people that live in my dorm at school, man, that's a great way to give gifts to Jesus. To love and serve people at work, even the annoying people at work, is a great way to give gifts to Jesus. I'm going to ask the band to come on up, and we're going to spend a little bit of time singing. And as we do that, I want us to remember, when we look at the wise men, when we look at how they worshiped Jesus, they were crazy excited. If you can think about Christmas and not start to get some crazy excited, then you don't understand Christmas. In fact, sometimes people try to jump to the last one that I said. I said the last one is, giving gifts and being nice to each other. And sometimes people jump to that and say, yeah, we should do that at Christmas time. But oftentimes people struggle to do that. You know why we struggle to actually give those gifts and love and serve other people? Because we don't celebrate the first two ways. If you celebrate that first way, if you spend time at Christmas getting excited because of who God is and what He's done, right? If it starts there like, man, I'm excited because I know that God came down and lived as this person, Jesus ultimately died and rose again. We know the end of the story. But if I can like, man, that's pretty exciting that happened. And then you go to the second part like, holy cow, if that's really happened, then I just got to bow down and worship. If you do those two, the third one just starts to come from that. If you do the last one of trying to serve people without the other ones, you often get frustrated, disappointed. Man, they didn't love me back. Well, did people love Jesus back? Not really. Man, they didn't reciprocate. That's not what this is about. This is about the fact that God became human. It's like, wow, I just got to worship that. And then we start to go, all right, if He could do that, well, then I can love and serve my friends, my coworkers, my professors. I can do that. Why can I do that? Because I understand who Jesus is. So this Christmas, we got a week where we can take more time to be crazy excited. Take some more time to really just kind of bow down. As we sing these next few songs, I want you guys to just have that image of what it really means that God came down at Christmas. Let's pray. God, we do thank you. Man, I know for me, I often just forget all that you've done for me. I don't pay attention to all the things you've done. I go through my life and I get busy with all this stuff, and I forget the fact that, man, what you did at Christmas. I forget how amazing it is. I forget how excited I should be. God, please help me catch a glimpse of the greatness and grandeur of what it means for you to come down at Christmas. I pray for all of us here that we would be able to worship, like really worship, to really revere you for who you are, to understand how great you are, so that ultimately we can love and serve and care for the people we come into every day. Please accept this worship right now as we sing to you. Accept this worship as an offering to thank you for who you are and what you've done. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.